Yep. This is a nice one, dude. What's up, guys? My name is Nate. My channel is called Real Roman Fishing. Welcome back if you're one of those first 400 subscribers to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you're seeing one of these videos for the first time. Hopefully I've got a pretty good video today. We're going to be looking at some Centerpin Steelhead fishing footage. But before we even get into the actual footage, I thought it might be cool to walk you through my Centerpin setup. This is something that I just started using this year, so I'm definitely a beginner, definitely still new to it, and just put this setup together recently. So if anyone else is in that same boat, or is thinking of adding or changing up their Centerpin setup at all, hopefully this video is helpful. So to start walking through the setup, we can start with the reel. So the reel that I'm using here is an Okuma Raw 2 Centerpin reel. It's smooth spooling. I've got some really good drifts on it. No complaints with this reel. And if this is one of the ones you're considering to build your setup, I highly recommend it. The rod that I'm using in this setup is a Shimano Clarus Centerpin reel. So this is a specialty Centerpin reel. I did a lot of research to pick out this specific rod. So this is a 13-foot medium light rod. And that was because I heard some feedback that it would be a little bit easier to learn to cast on a 13-foot rod. And also the 13-foot rod would be a little bit more forgiving when I was fighting a fish. So next we can talk about line. And the first thing you'll see on here is I have a little bit of yellow-green backing on here before I actually get to my mono. So that's just like real cheap 20-pound yellow braid that I got from Bass Pro Shops. And then that's connected to 15-pound floating monofilament. So the floating aspect is really important for float fishing. You want something that stays on top of the water and that doesn't pull your float down. So this is floating monofilament. The brand I'm using is Blood Run Tackle here. So far, no complaints on this front. And I went with a clear color. You can get colors, so like colored line that's either higher visibility or matches the rest of your setup, whatever you're after there. I went with a clear just because it feels a little bit more stealthy, but I have seen lots of people using high vis or colored line and still catching fish. Moving to the end of the setup, right on that main line here, so on that 15-pound floating mono, I have an 11-gram Raven float. I really like using Raven floats, and I use them on all my Steelhead setups here. Continuing to move down here, right on this main line, I have an egg sinker, a sliding egg sinker that's weighted with that 11-gram float to make sure it balances out and that my presentation is going to be sitting nice and low in the water. That's connected to a barrel swivel here, and then that barrel swivel connects to my leader here. So my leader is typically 8-pound fluorocarbon. I like to use P-line, either 8-pound or 6-pound fluorocarbon. And then that's going down to the trusty old white and red crappie tube. So you might see a lot more Centerpin people are using like beads or smaller, stealthier setups. And I will explore with those and experiment with those more in the coming months and seasons, I'm sure. But while I'm getting started, I just want to make sure I'm catching fish with what I'm comfortable with. So with that, let's dive in to some of the footage from this last weekend. Hopefully this is a cool way to see the Centerpin setup that I just showed you actually in action catching fish. So, you know, the morning started off pretty well. Landed the first fish in the first spot that we went to. So I'll take us to that footage now. There we go. It feels like a good fish. Now you want to get this boy in? Pow. Glad to have landed that first fish in the first spot. You know, we really thought this spot was going to be on and that we're going to be catching fish there all morning. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. So we fished there for another hour or so before ultimately deciding that the bite just wasn't there and the fish weren't taking what we were offering. So we decided to move a little bit further upriver here. And you can see Taylor hooked up pretty quickly once we got to our new spot. He's also using a Centerpin setup here, very similar, same brand reel, same brand rod. And he's got a nice fish on here, a nice buck steelhead. We were fishing with plastics, soft plastics here, so crappie tubes and minnows behind jigs, and just running them through a long hole with lots of fish in it. And we were able to start hooking up and getting some more fish in this morning. Oh, that's a solid fish. That's 26 probably. Yeah. So Taylor also landed the third fish of the day for us. So here you can see, you can see his hook set right here. He's in the background. We're both running our jigs right through this hole and just giving him a little bit of twitch. And there, Taylor gets a bite, sets the hook, and is able to land another nice fish. This one was a little bit smaller, so he got it in quickly, but still an awesome fish. And I really love that footage of the hook set there. Way to be. After that fish, it seemed like we hit a lull again. So we were, running baits through the hole for a while and getting nothing. We were switching baits up a lot, switching up colors, switching up presentations, trying to see if we could find something that would turn those fish back onto a bite. But ultimately, what we had to do was I went back to that first white crappie tube, so old reliable, after a number of drifts through with other baits, and pretty quickly on that first cast here, was able to hook up and get a nice fish. There we go. Oh. Whew. Just restore the confidence. So at this point, it's already been a pretty successful trip. We both have a couple fish on the shore, and I'm a pretty new centerpin angler, so I'm always happy to get anything I can. But actually was able to land one more fish, and that turned out to be the fish of the trip, the thumbnail fish for this video. So I was really encouraged to land that, and I hope the footage comes through pretty nicely. Yep. This is a nice one, dude. This is the first big fish I've battled on the pin. Boom! Yes, baby! There it is. That's going to do it for today's video. Ended up with 3 fish on the day. Taylor also landed a couple, all in the Centerpin. Hopefully you enjoyed that gear overview of how I set up that Centerpin as well. But feel free to drop any questions or comments about what we're doing on the river, what we're doing in that setup. Drop any comments, I'll make sure to answer those. If you want to see more content like this, or you appreciated any of the tips or the content I put together for you, feel free to subscribe or like this video, because it really does help encourage me to keep creating content and hopefully creating stuff that's useful for you next time out on the river. So thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and good luck next time out.